All right, y'all, today we're talking about sixths on the guitars, more specifically kind of doing double stops with sixths. This is a super great tool to have. It's used in so many different types of music, everything from country and songs like Guitars and Cadillacs to Soul Man, which is just a classic Stax R&B song. So I'm gonna show you a pretty easy pattern to get started with today. It's gonna be nice and short and sweet, and we're really gonna upgrade your single lines with this one. So let's check it out. What's up, y'all? So today we're doing a lesson that reaches all the way back to the very first short I made like almost 2 years ago, where I was like, hey, this is kind of fun. I think I'm gonna do it. And what we're talking about is basically a sixth interval on the guitar and doing a double stop. So what is a sixth? Well, just like anything else on the guitar, when we're talking about thirds and sevenths and fourths and fifths, it's just a distance, right, from a note. So like say A was the note I'm starting with, a third would be, if I'm going up a major scale, 1, 2, 3. Well, a sixth is 6 up from that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that 6 is right there, right? So that's what we're working with today. Now here's something really interesting. I'm gonna throw this little bit of theory in, so if you don't wanna listen to it, fast forward or stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 la, whatever you need to do. So for those of you that don't have your fingers in your ears, so here's a crazy thing to think about when you're thinking about finding a sixth. A sixth and a third are kind of related, okay? So the third of A, so if I got an A, right? My third of A is a D flat. So, right? There's your third. Well, your A is the sixth of D flat. And so that's the kind of interesting theory thing to remember, right? So the third of A is D flat. Well, the sixth of D flat is A. So they're the same two notes, but depending on the order you play them. So if the A is the low and the D flat is the higher note, it's kind of like a third. But if you use the D flat as your lower note and the A as your higher note, you can get a sixth sound. Okay? And so just keep that in your pocket, go back and read a little bit more, but that's really the way that a lot of times I find these, okay? So just think about it and ask questions below and we can try to figure out some more, okay? All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty on this pattern, and then I'll show you like an example or two, and then yeah, you'll be armed and dangerous. So let's pull in a little closer and get going. All right, hey guys, real quick, don't forget, like, subscribe, you know. All right, thanks. All right, let's check this thing out. So we're using two shapes. We're gonna use the A, let's just use an A. So if we're in this A bar chord, right? And so our A is right here on the 5th fret, and our D flat is here on the 6th fret of the G string. So if I pluck those, I get that sound. So you get this shape. And then if I go up, the minor version, I get this shape. And now you would harmonize this like you would any major scale. So it's like major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor, major. All right, let's kind of run through and build off of this really simple one that I kind of taught you guys in an old short ages ago. So we're just gonna start on the A and we're gonna go, we're gonna use our high E string as kind of the note that we're using to guide us. So it's at the 5th fret, kind of that major shape, then a minor at the 7th, minor at the 9th. And then at the D, we do the same thing. We start major at the 10, minor at the 12, minor at the 14. And then at the E, we start at the 12th with a major, 14 minor, 16 minor, and then we're back to A. Now, the first thing you might notice if you are looking really closely is when I get to the D, I'm doing a minor here at the 12th fret instead of a major. Well, that's because I'm wanting to play with the changes. I'm basically changing and going with a D scale when I go to the D. So it's like, that's one, and then the same thing with E. So instead of it being, so if I just followed the A scale, it would sound like this, right? which sounds okay. But if you kind of want to make it sound like you're playing with the changes, I really like this. All right, now we're gonna add another wrinkle. So when you're in those minors, do a chromatic build up instead of just going, go. So let's try that. And so that's it, you're just going all over the place. Now you could go backwards too, right? Major, minor, back to major. So just play with those changes all over. And so here's the great thing. It transposes to the B and D strings. So you would get the same shapes. So if I went up one, now I've got the E here, and then I've got this C sharp, right? So. And so, yeah, if you can get those two, or those two shapes under your fingers, and then you can shift them between using the high E and the B as your kind of guides, those are really where you're gonna use those kind of melody lines. And then you're off to the races. So let's do a real world example so you guys can kind of hear some of these things. So the solo in Guitars in Cadillac, one of my favorite, has this part that goes. And so you'll recognize that, and all that is sixths. So he's just going. But when he gets to here, he's bending it up and then coming down just like that. Same thing up here. So play around with that. That's really hard. That gets a little advanced. You really got to get those notes to sound out right. But yeah, that's the thing. But you know, you can use this to sound really country with these six, like. So it just gives you a really great sound. Okay, and so one more, Brown-Eyed Girl. I know you've heard it everywhere. You're gonna wanna learn it. So I think I'm gonna do it this way. So if we start here, it's that same pattern. You're just walking it up and down. There you go, 6. They're really great. You hear them all over the place. You just don't realize it. So dig in, learn those 2 little shapes and start playing with the patterns, and you'll be amazed how good it's gonna sound, especially if you're trying to add little single note lines to things. Why do singles when you can do doubles? And it just makes everything sound so much better. So yeah, try those out. All right, thanks again, y'all. It's been a really crazy month here at the old Reynolds Ranch, so I really appreciate everybody checking out the video. Took me a while to get back to another one, so yeah, but it was really fun to kind of work on these intervals and some more guitar lessons. I really like it. We're gonna get back to gear here pretty soon. Got some other things lined up, I think. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who's liked, subscribe. If you haven't, I say it before and I'll say it again, please do. I really enjoy talking to you guys about this stuff. And then, yeah, that's about it. Other than that, please take care of yourself out there. It's a really wild world and we need to keep y'all around, all right? Later.